Hello again, everybody. So today I want to do a video after doing a little bit of research, not a lot. Just wanted to look into a few things. And before I get started on the video, I want to talk about a few things that's going to be coming up soon. Mysteries of Manitowoc episode 5, and then also plan on having Thomas on the next episode of Poison Prosecutors, and we're going to be talking about Tom Fallon. He has uncovered a bunch of information on Tom Fallon, I'm sure most of which is known, and then some is not. Also, I guess we could take this opportunity to talk about Mammothon. As it stands right now, the way everything's set up, it's going to be April 25th, April 26th. I'm going to have 2 time slots within those dates. On the 25th, I'm going to be on from 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. And on Sunday, which is the 26th, I'll be on from 4 to 7, I believe it is. I have to double check that, but I think it's 4 to 7 or 3 to 6, 4 to 7. The people I'm going to have on, hopefully, if everything goes well, is Thomas Myrtle. He's going to be on. I have another commitment from the guy that used to have his channel name used to be Fresh Start Monday. He's going to be on. And then I have 2. I have my DNA expert that I've referred to in many of my videos is going to be on my channel, probably for a 30-minute discussion about DNA, touch DNA, stuff like that. He said that we can plan on him being here because of the virus. He had some stuff going on that weekend, but because of the virus, he probably will definitely be able to come on that weekend. He told me if not, for some reason, hopefully he will be able to for that weekend. But if not, that he would come on any other time, So that's good. And also, we will have. She kind of gave me the same answer because they're dealing with a lot of stuff right now. She's a associate professor at a university, so they're working to move a bunch of stuff for online courses. But a social psychologist and expert on false confessions, she is planning on coming on my channel for Mammothon. And if not, she said if something came up to where she wasn't, then I would be able to surely get a written interview, and we could just do it that way. But hopefully everything will work out the way I want it to, obviously, and they'll be able to come on. So without further ado, the title of the video is Bad Boys in Blue. And I was doing a little research earlier, just looking up some different stuff, and I was looking up cases of cops planting evidence. And I found some I'm sure we've all heard about, and then I found some that, as far as I know, I don't know if y'all have heard of this one or not, but I haven't heard many people talk about it. Found it very interesting. So, among searching for these different cases, they pulled up, one from Florida and one from Baltimore, and then I got more specific. I put into the search engine cops planting evidence in murder cases, and lo and behold, popped up an article from Wisconsin. And hopefully I pronounced this correctly, but it's from Kenosha County. And it's a real quick article, and I'm going to read through this real quick. Very, very interesting, to say the least. Ken Kratz told us that in order to believe that the cops planted all this evidence to frame Steven Avery, that you have to take the leap, and you have to go as far, as far as to say that the cops killed her. Well, no, you don't. Okay, you don't have to say that the cops killed her in order for them to have planted evidence in cases and in murder cases. So Ken Crouch just needs to shut up and go sit down somewhere, because half of the crap that comes out of his mouth makes absolutely no sense. So here we go. Ex-DA faces suspension after failing to disclose that the cop planted evidence in a murder case. This article is written by Larry Hannon. Larry Hannon. An 85-page report filed with the Wisconsin Supreme Court by retired Circuit Judge Dennis Flynn found that former Kenosha County District Attorney Robert Zaff committed multiple instances of professional misconduct. So this could kind of go as a poison prosecutor and a dirty cop video. So he was found multiple instances of professional misconduct, and Zaff deserves to be suspended from practicing law and prohibited from ever again being a prosecutor. The violations go back to Zaff's conduct when he was prosecuting Marquise Tibbs and Joseph Jamal Brantley for the murder of Anthony Edwards. Although Zapp had a duty to disclose Kenosha officer Kyle Barr's misconduct, which involved planting a .22 caliber bullet and Tibbs' ID card at a house that was searched as part of an investigation. So this officer planted a .22 caliber bullet and an ID card in this case, in a murder case. Sound familiar? He did not promptly share the information. In fact, Zapp, the prosecutor, went so far as to keep Bars on the prosecution witness list, despite knowing that Bars had resigned as a result of the flagrant misdeeds. Bars did not testify at trial, although another police officer testified about finding the ID card and the bullet. And photos of both were shown to the jury with no mention that Bars had planted them. So the jury and the defense had no knowledge that some of the evidence that they were being shown was planted. So Zapp only disclosed the information when Brantley's criminal trial was almost over. By that point, Tibbs had already been cut a deal and agreed to testify against Brantley. According to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, only after defense had rested, Zapp told the judge there were problems with that evidence and that Bars had resigned. Despite protestations by the defense counsel that misconduct justified a mistrial, the trial court denied their motion. Brantley was convicted and sentenced to 23 years in prison. Tibbs was sentenced to 16 years in prison. Now, I can't speak to whether or not these guys, I haven't looked into it, actually did what they were accused of doing. Judging by some of the stuff I read, maybe so. I'm just simply pointing out the misdeeds by the prosecutor and the police officer. The extraordinary evidence of the KPD officer planting evidence in a homicide case and then subsequently resigning because of the misconduct that was exculpatory evidence in and of itself, Flynn wrote. This is so whether the planted evidence, that don't even make sense, but that's what it says. This is so whether the planted evidence is determined to be relevant or not in the case. Flynn also emphasized that the role of the prosecutors is to ensure that justice shall be done, and noted that the mission statement for the Kenosha County District Attorney's Office that prosecuted Tibbs and Brantley says, in part, it is important to keep in mind that the district attorney is the gatekeeper to the criminal justice system. As such, his job is not merely to obtain convictions, but to seek justice. That's got to be the best phrase that I've ever read. I mean, that's absolutely what their job should be. So, Flynn also dismissed Zaff's argument that the strength of the evidence against Tibbs and Brantley somehow lessened the degree of the responsibility and ultimate wrongdoing. The law presumes honesty and integrity by those who make gatekeeping decisions regarding the productions of exculpatory evidence. Respondent confused his belief in the strength of the case and the guilt of the persons he charged with the crimes and the right those persons have the fundamental fairness in the trial process. The Wisconsin Supreme Court, which appointed Flynn as a referee to gather evidence, conduct hearings, and offer his recommendations, will make the final decision on Zaff's culpability and punishment. According to the Wisconsin court system, the Supreme Court reviews referee sports and independently determines whether to accept the referee's recommendation. Bars, the officer involved, eventually pleaded guilty to felony misconduct and was sentenced to 1 year probation. Zaff, the DA, chose not to seek re-election as Kenosha County District Attorney in 2016. So, the police officer for planting evidence in a murder case got 1 year probation. And the attorney, essentially, the prosecutor essentially got a slap on the wrist. And this is all right there in Wisconsin, 118 miles from Manitowoc. Now, I was talking to an individual earlier. It'd be very interesting because, for instance, in my state, 118 miles would probably be from Kentwood to New Orleans. Maybe slightly further, but that's probably about what it would be. There's a lot of people in Kentwood that know people from New Orleans. So 118 miles sounds like a lot, but in the criminal justice system, when you have all these different attorneys and players that go to these different colleges together, and you have all these officers that go to different academies and different events together, and what have you, I'd like to make connections between these district attorneys and these police officers just for the heck of it. But another case I found while researching for this was a case in Florida, and I'm sure most of you have heard of it. This police officer was planting methamphetamine on people that he pulled over. Completely innocent people. He would just plant meth in their vehicles. And these people would go to jail. And a lot of these cases, these people would lose their kids, all kinds, their job, all kinds of different repercussions. And this guy had no regard for any of that. Just planting drugs in these people's car. Now, immediately once this was found out, I think he was caught through his body cam. When this was found out, they started immediately reviewing a lot, all of the cases that, people that he arrested for drugs, and 119 cases were dropped immediately. Shockingly, there are still 263 cases under review. So that means this guy has close to 400 cases of potential planting evidence on completely innocent people, planting drugs in their vehicles. There was also another case, a couple more cases. There's a bunch of different cases, but the ones I chose to look at was there was a case in Baltimore of police planting drugs on people. One case in particular, and then there's two other cases right now that's being looked at in Baltimore of cops planting evidence in various cases and what have you. So I just find it very interesting that Kratz and a lot of these people, and then even guilters, and look, don't get me wrong, I've said it many times before, I'm not anti-police. I'm 100% not. A lot of my thoughts are rare towards, a lot of my feelings and my thoughts towards this case are actually rare because a lot of times I side with the police officers and, a lot of cases, but with the emergence of body cams and cell phone cameras and red light cameras, all of these different cameras, we're starting to weed out and we're starting to find that there are a bunch of bad apples in a lot of these groups. There always are. So while I am not anti-police, we have no room in our society for any police officer to be planting any evidence in any case. It doesn't matter if they think they're 100% guilty. If they, whatever the case is, there's no exception. There's no excuse for planting evidence or planting drugs, what have you, on anybody under any circumstances. So there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. Guilters and other people that often comment on these type cases saying that we're crazy. they say, well, a cop, the cops wouldn't do that. They don't have any motive to plant this or plant that, or a cop wouldn't kill somebody. Well, there's a lot of videos out there where the cop was in the right shooting somebody, and tragic situation. But there's just as many videos to where the cop was 100% in the wrong and 100% murdered somebody, just shot him down. The case, two of the cases that disgust me the most that I often think about was the one where the guy was just running away from the police officer, and he had been chasing him, and he finally caught back up with him. And when he caught up with him, the guy took off running again, and he didn't know he was being filmed. He pulled out his gun and shot him 9 times in the back. He needs to be in prison, and he is. He's a murderer. That's absolutely insane. And then one of the more tragic cases was I think this guy was a janitor at a high school. He had his kid and his girlfriend in the vehicle, and I think it was an Asian police officer, and it was a black male. He told the Asian police officer, he said, "Look, I have a gun in my glove box, and I have a permit for it and everything." And, there wasn't any problem. And so he made the cop aware, there's a kid and a woman in the car. So he made the cop aware of a weapon being in the vehicle. Now, the cop told him to get his insurance and stuff. And the guy told him, "Look, I'm just reaching over here to get my, insurance like you just told me to." And he reaches over there with the woman and kid in the car, and this cop shoots him to death. I mean, I get the fact that you want to go home to your family. I 100% understand that. A lot of my family members are cops. I have friends that are cops. I get it. But in situations like that, where it's blatant, I don't even understand. I don't think in these cases, these cops literally want to murder somebody. I think it's like a brain fart or something. I mean, did you forget that the guy just told you he had a weapon in there? He hasn't reached for it. All he is doing is complying with what you told him to do, which is get your insurance card and stuff out of the glove box. And he makes one little movement towards the glove box after telling you that's what he's about to do, and you pull your gun out and shoot him. So we got to look at everything right down the middle. I'm not anti-cop, but if it's wrong, we got to call it out as wrong. It's absolutely insane. Some of these cases, the guy that was in the road, and there's like 20 cops surrounding him, and his car broke down in the middle of the street, and the cops was on their way to another call, and he just so happened to be in the way. And they're sitting there yelling at him and all this, trying to tell him to get his truck out of the road, and they got him at gunpoint at this point. And he's trying to explain to him, "Look, my truck's broke down in the middle of the road." Well, he starts walking back towards his vehicle, and they claim that he reached into his vehicle for something, and they just mow him down. They shot him to death right there in the middle of the street. So don't think and I know the people watching this video don't think this, but for anybody, because every now and then there are a few skeptical people or haters or whatever you want to call them that will tune into one of my videos. It's okay to look at both sides of the issue. It's okay to acknowledge, hey, we got a lot of good cops. I'd be willing to bet 70%, 80% good cops. They protect and serve. They do the job the right way. But you have to acknowledge the bad police officers, and you have to weed those people out. There needs to be more stringent background checks and hiring when you're hiring these officers. So that's just my thoughts on this. I found it very ironic that as soon as I typed in, cop planting evidence in a murder case, the very first one that popped up was this case from Kenosha County. I had to do a video. I mean, that was like internet gold right there, especially pertaining to what we always talk about. So Got a lot of stuff playing, like I spoke about earlier. And I did a live because I didn't feel like doing all the various things you have to do to upload a regular video. A live is a lot easier. So it wasn't going to be that long of a video. So make sure you share this video, like and subscribe if you want to. And I appreciate everybody for joining in. You can let me know what you think in the comment section. And y'all stay safe and try not to get the coronavirus.